Hello fellow bus nuts, geeks, and enthusiasts. Welcome to another episode of Motor Coach World. Based on the comments from my last video, today we're going to talk about the evolution of Motor Coach Industries' MCI J4500. Now before we can start talking about the MCI J4500, we kind of have to go back a little bit and talk about its predecessor, Motor Coach Industries' MCI DL3. Now in case you haven't figured it out yet, MCI stands for Motor Coach Industries, which is the name of the company that produces MCI buses. Motor Coach Industries rolled out its first DL3 in 1992, being the pride and joy and the flagship of MCI's motor coach lineup. Produced all the way until 2005, the MCI DL3 was a very popular choice for many motor coach operators. Its simplistic, tanky, solid design made it a very dependable and reliable motor coach for many companies to use. In 1994, MCI's competitor Prevost released their top-of-the-line motor coach, the Prevost H345. Looking more sleek and modern than Motor Coach Industries' DL3, the Prevost H345 also presented a larger framework. Towering over the DL3, the Prevost stood 12 feet 4 inches tall, in comparison to the Motor Coach Industries' DL3, only 10 feet 6 inches tall. Now this struck up some concerns within MCI's executive ranks. In a mad dash to compete with Prevost's H345, MCI rolled out its competing product, the EL3, otherwise known as the Renaissance Coach, or E4500, also known as the E model, entered production and rolled off the assembly line in 1997. The EL3, very much ahead of its time, presented an extremely curvy and futuristic looking body style, including its signature curving stairwell. It was also the first motor coach to have a computer-assisted suspension system, meaning the coach would right and level itself in tight turns so that the passengers didn't feel the turn as much. Also on uneven terrain, the coach would adjust its air bellows on each side of the vehicle to level the coach, allowing a more comfortable ride and a more pleasant cabin environment for the passengers. The EL3 also offered a steerable tag axle. Now the tag axle is the third set of wheels on the very rear of the motor coach. When the driver steered the steering wheel to the right, the rear tag axle would steer the opposite direction up to 10% of the overall steering radius. This allowed the coach to make sharper turns, and it also reduced wear and tear on the rear tag tires, being that if they were stationary, the tires would simply be dragged and scraped against the tarmac whenever the coach made a tight turn. The EL3 also boasted extreme bragging rights for its new braking ability. The revolutionary disc braking system on the EL3 allowed the motor coach to stop with the same stopping distance as a 1998 Ford Expedition. Now again, the EL3 was a coach ahead of its time. The problem was it was rushed through development to compete with the new Prevost H345. After rolling off the assembly line, many bus companies operating their brand new shiny EL3 started encountering a lot of different problems. Many of the new systems were unreliable and would fail. Because of this, many bus companies kept their DL3s and continued to use them. Motor Coach Industries' DL3 still proved to be extremely dependable and reliable. He also earned the nickname the Dependable D. And because of Motor Coach Industries' E model's deficiencies, Motor Coach Industry continued to produce the DL3 all the way through the mid-2000s. In the opening months of the year 2000, MCI held a meeting and invited some of its top engineers and sharpest minds from its sales teams. The question was asked by the president and CEO of MCI, what would you guys do to the EL3 to make it a better coach? Almost immediately, one of the team members answered, how about we remove some of the high-tech stuff from the EL3? And in 2001, the first prototype of the MCI J4500 came off the production line. Along with some small cosmetic body changes, the J4500 to the untrained eye was almost indistinguishable when compared to the EL3. However, on the inside of the coach, the guts and components were a completely different story. Motor Coach Industries engineers practically stripped the E model entirely of all of its state-of-the-art components. What was left was the new MCI J4500. The new J4500 was basically an MCI DL3, but shoved into the futuristic-looking body style of the EL3. Again, as mentioned before, with slight cosmetic differences on the body. But to the untrained eye, one could not distinguish the two apart. Well, unless you're a bus nut geek or enthusiast.
Behold, I'm Captain Kirk from Star Trek 1. 2, 5 generations. Boston Legal.
The new J4500 had a static tag axle, which means the tag wheels did not steer the opposite direction of the front wheel. MCI did build in the option for the driver to lift the tag axle electronically when the coach was making tight maneuvers, thereby preventing the rear tag wheels from being damaged during sharp turns. The new MCI J4500 also lost its state-of-the-art disc brakes and went back to the drum brakes. This resulted in much longer stopping distances, and Motor Coach Industries lost the bragging right of the stopping distance, equating to that of the Ford Expedition, 1998. Now, some of the outside differences between the MCI J4500 and the EL3 were: the EL3 had framed windows, where the J4500 offered frameless windows, thereby creating a sharper, sleeker look. The top portion of the EL3 was boxier, and the new J4500 rounded off its corners. Some of the more insignificant details were on the very front nose of the coach. The EL3 had a notch cut out of its front panel, whereas the new J4500 had a flush, straight nose panel going all the way down to its front bumper. The front upper roof section of the EL3 had a separate panel, whereas the MCI J4500 had a fiberglass roof piece, allowing the cluster lights to be much lower and more visible. On the sides of the two motor coaches, the EL3 had long black latches to operate the luggage bay's doors, whereas the new MCI J4500 offered smaller, easier to operate black handles. The MCI J4500 had newer, sleeker-looking modular taillights and turn signals, whereas the EL3 had a complete single assembly that looks like the same type of taillights the Ford Econoline cargo van used. Seriously, MCI? On the interior of the two buses, the MCI EL3 and the J4500 look pretty similar, other than the fact that the MCI EL3's bulkhead panels had somewhat of a yellowish hue to it compared to that of the J4500, which had a gray interior. It didn't take long for motor coach companies to take notice of the new J4500, and sales began to increase. As the years went on, MCI's J4500 became more and more popular with the bus company operators. MCI also had time to conduct more research and development to all of its high-tech systems that it installed on the EL3. As MCI started perfecting and tweaking the systems and getting rid of all the bugs that the EL3 encountered, once each of the state-of-the-art systems proved more reliable, MCI started installing them on the new J4500. The newer J models coming off the assembly line were more perfected and refined, and bus company owners started enjoying the luxuries of all the new computer-controlled systems once again, but this time on the J4500. Even with the J4500 becoming more and more refined, the operators still had one big complaint, and that was its braking power. In 2004, Motor Coach Industries once again installed newer, refined disc brakes back on the MCI J4500, and the coach's stopping distance improved dramatically. By 2005, MCI's EL3 and their new J4500 were practically the exact same coach. The lines had blurred between the two models, and aside from the previously mentioned cosmetic differences, the two coaches had almost identical technology and components on the inside. By 2009, Motor Coach Industries completely stopped producing its E model, and the new J4500 became Motor Coach Industries' pride and joy flagship. In 2010, Motor Coach Industries introduced yet another groundbreaking revolutionary system to its MCI J4500 motor coach, the new Bindex independent suspension system. The newer MCI J4500s handled like sports cars, making them incredibly easy to maneuver and operate in high speeds and in low speeds. On the test tracks, the new MCI J4500 with its brand new independent suspension systems could perform a double emergency lane change going 72 miles an hour without hitting a single cone or tipping. This made the J4500 a treat to drive, and the operators loved it. In 2014, the MCI J4500 received an entirely new body style. With the interior of the coach practically remaining the same, the new body style of the J4500 offered sharper corners and took away the rounded edges, giving the illusion of a taller and larger frame without actually increasing the mass of the body. In 2018, the J4500 received an entirely new interior. The new dash of the 2018 J4500 gave the operator much better forward visibility, and the new redesigned, modern-looking interior cabin of the coach gave the passengers a feeling of being on a Boeing 737 aircraft. On the outside of the new 2018 J4500, the body style remained the same. The only thing that was added in 2018 were the addition of luggage lights. Practically unnoticeable by the untrained eye, the upper roof railings on the exterior of the coach had 4 little high-lumen LED lights installed. When the operator stopped the coach and opened the luggage bays, the light would illuminate the surrounding areas of the coach, providing better visibility for the driver and the passengers disembarking. Well folks, if you can think of anything that I didn't mention that I should have mentioned about the evolution of the MCI J4500, or if you think that I stated anything incorrectly, please drop me a comment down in the description box below. And also, don't forget to message me on my Patreon page. And again, if you like what I'm doing and you want to be a supporter, be a patron. Go to patreon.com/motorcoach and sign up to become a patron of my channel. Your proceed will go towards me being able to make better quality content for you guys. Cameras and sound gear are expensive to buy, and over the last 2 years I've been pretty harsh on my equipment, doing what I have to do to produce the content that I put on my channel. And if you're completely broke living on canned tuna and ramen noodles, hey, don't worry about it. All of my content is still free to watch, and if you like what you see, don't forget to hit that like and subscribe button. That's free. And finally folks, if you can think of a topic or have a question for me that you would like discussed on the next episode of Motor Coach World, please send it to me via my Patreon page as a post or down in the comment box below. Once again guys, thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed this video, and remember, if you're watching this, you are part of the Motor Coach world.